You cannot expect as a state to keep people in that condition for a long period of time with no consequences. What is really missing from the coverage of these days is the context. And it's so important to speak about the context of what determined the current events. And what determined the current events is over 75 years of oppression over the Palestinian people and daily routine abuses over the Palestinian people. And this is the context that is missing, and this is the context that we should speak about loudly. We are speaking about over 75 years of military occupation. We are speaking about a colonial project that aims at the complete removing the Palestinian people from their land. Professor Ilan Pape brilliantly describes it as a process of incremental genocide. In 1948, Palestinians lived the Nakba, the catastrophe, the massive exodus of almost 1 million people, who were violently and brutally removed from their lands, from their houses, from their villages. From that day, Palestinians are living what they call al-Nakba al-Mustamira, the ongoing Nakba, that we are seeing displaying in front of our eyes today. That's a perpetual Nakba, an ongoing Nakba. Every day they live abuses, dispossession by Israeli forces, Israeli authorities, imprisonments, torture, detention of children, administrative detention with no charge nor trial. Not to speak about the Gaza siege. Gaza has been under a hermetic Israeli siege for the last 16 years. And in these days, we are living a form of siege that is medieval. Gaza doesn't have access to water. Gaza doesn't have access to clean water normally. The United Nations declared Gaza an unlivable territory already in 2021, and we are in 2023. But these days, the water pipes were disconnected completely. So the Palestinian people are starving. They have no water, no electricity, no fuel. This is beyond the humanitarian emergency and the humanitarian crisis. We are living one of the darkest pages in our history as a human beings.
I was in Gaza just a few days before the 7th of October. I came back, and I wouldn't have imagined that the siege is actually going into the details of basic goods, basic supplies. They count the calories that enter the Gaza Strip. People don't have balloons, as simple as that, to celebrate birthdays. They don't have candles because the material in balloons and candles are prohibited by Israel. So Israel has been controlling what enters Gaza for the past 17 years. From the way they were managing the Strip, even if they claim to be at the borders of it, where were they planning to take the Strip?
You cannot expect as a state to maintain a population, a part of the population, a large part of the population. We are speaking about over 2.2 million people who were living in a very narrow territory with no basic human rights, with no elementary rights. And you cannot expect to keep people in that condition for a long period of time with no consequences. And doing whatever you were doing, and having this Western approach and whitewashed approach to life, this is not possible. And also from time to time bombing Gaza regularly, and so destroying the infrastructures. And Gaza people were trying to recover from previous military operations, the latest of which was the biggest one was in 2021, but there were other military operations always targeting civilian infrastructures and residential buildings and so forth and so on. And you cannot expect that situation not to be a bomb that is clearly ready to blow up at some point. And whomever is speaking about these facts not speaking about the context in this moment is, completely neglecting the truth. And completely turning the back to a situation that was unbearable for the population in Gaza. As you said, even the calories were counted, and this is not random. This is part of a project. A few years ago, an Israeli official said that the project was to make people in Gaza hungry without starving them. And this was an Israeli official. So we are speaking here about a criminal project that had to be stopped before. And whomever didn't stop this project, I think today has the responsibility for what is happening.
What would you ask of media for the coming days to avoid the missteps that they fell into in the past week, and to try to stop the bloodshed in Gaza, of civilians in Gaza?
Yeah, the coverage has been, and I'm going to use a strong term here, the coverage has been shameful. Fake news were reported, unverified news were reported without even confirming the sources of these news, and without thinking that when we work as journalists, as professionals, as media professionals, we have a responsibility, because fomenting the hatred during these days is really what you don't want to do. In this moment when we are speaking, children are dying in Gaza, either because they are bombed or because there is no water, there is no electricity. Children who were admitted in hospitals and are in intensive care units. In this moment, Israel is threatening to bomb hospitals and is asking hospitals to be evacuated because it's going to bomb it. So when we report, we have to be careful about what we are reporting about, because I consider equally responsible whomever spread lies these days and had, or the coverage with no context, because this means also fomenting hatred and justifying a massacre that is happening in the total, complete negligence of the word. And the international community should be more vocal and louder in condemning this. We have seen in different situations that the international community wants to use the card of human rights, but we want the human rights to be valid everywhere, in every circumstance. We cannot use the card of human rights only when it fits the agenda of some government or some institutions. If we really care about human rights, what is happening right now in Gaza is not acceptable.